welcome to today's episode of Westfox. Today we're talking about Assassination Classroom, and I am your humble host, Westfox, and I am joined by Shepard here, who recommended this one to me. Actually, he's put this on my queue quite a long time ago, and I finally watched it. And I will say this first part of this conversation will be first few minutes. We'll do a spoiler free, then we'll let you know when spoilers get into it. So definitely a show that should be watched. After watching it, I will say it is definitely one worth watching. It's only 2 seasons long. It has a full conclusion to the story. You're not gonna be left hanging, which sometimes can suck in stories. The characters are great in it, without going too far down any roads. And the premise isn't as, once you get into it, isn't quite as far out as the kind of initial summary seems, which is essentially someone trying to kill their teacher. Once you start seeing the kind of stuff behind it, I mean, there is completely craziness that happens inside the story, but it isn't done in the way that like I kind of thought it was going to be. So that was really a pleasant surprise, and like I said, the strong characters in it. So if you haven't seen it, without going too much farther, go see it. And now we're going into spoiler territory. Like I said, I mean, really, with that, you can't really say much about the show without going into spoiler territory, to be honest. Yeah. Because it does kind of fall into some of the story beats in it, and without doing kind of a breakdown, we're just kind of discussing the end. So I don't want to give away things to people who want to watch the show and who should watch the show. So you've been warned, and now we're going into it. So you asked me after I finished the show what I think of the ending, and I actually surprised you because I was like, yes, the ending. Okay, now to say it's a bad ending is not a bad ending. There were just little elements in it that I was like, ooh, it kind of threw me off because it kind of does a time jump in the end, where it shows the characters, I think 10 years later or so. I think it's 10 years later. And
is that what it said, 10 years later?
I think it's 10 years later. Anyway, it's a few years later.
Notice, yeah.
Yeah, it's a sometime, I think it's 10 years. So the final assassination I thought was done pretty well. I don't know what else you can do because it's a bittersweet thing, right? Because you develop the character, Core Sensei, into a point that he is epic, right? He's this epic mentor to him. But you also learn his backstory, and you kind of understand why at some level he does kind of have to die. You also learn that kind of his threat was kind of a non-threat too, and so there's tie-ins to the person he cared about through the process of his kind of transition from being kind of a psycho into the character that he was. Now, and so it seems like so the one thing that they don't really dig into too deep, and I don't know if the manga did more, which is the tentacles themselves. Like they seem to have their own level of will to them, or at least when the human they're injected into infuses them with their own will at the moment a little bit. Because when he goes from being kind of just tentacle-headed guy of, you know, the Death Reaper, right, or the Reaper, he that's when he transitioned from being that to the character he is now. And that was an interesting story element in it, where you're like, oh, so he didn't become that. It kind of like he was like, I want to be a teacher, and they're like, and literally the tentacles are like, your wish is my command type thing. And so that was an interesting thing that I wouldn't have mind seeing explored more in the story a little bit. And I think that's, you know, and some of the weaknesses of the show, which are minimal, overall it's a really strong show. I have a couple things that I'm like, I would have loved to see. Well, one thing that these are all nitpicks, okay? Just so if you're watching, these are nitpicks. These are things that are like, they don't ruin the show anyway. They're just elements that I thought that was like, oh, okay, I would have done this a little differently. Hence my moody lighting right this today. Cause I'm like, oh, it's the moodiness for the assassination. But I think they should have been high school. I don't think they should have been middle schoolers. I don't know.
Yeah,
they feel like high schoolers.
That would be one thing.
They feel like high schoolers. Every element of the show feels like high school, or other high school drama shows. So the fact that they're middle school to me always felt, whenever they say like middle school, I'm always like, wow. I'm like, why are they in middle school? Why are these characters not high school? Because everything they're put into high school and every element of it makes more sense for high school. Kind of like the delinquents, right? They're like delinquent high schoolers. If you don't straighten your life out now, it's really screwed up type thing. So, and obviously physicality wise, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
one-on-one stuff.
Some of the girls, some of those girls are quite womanly for being middle school.
Well, that too, but also I was gonna say like just not that physicality. Well, that physicality too, but just the physicality. Like, I'm sorry, you know, a little middle school kid who's like 3'5" against a military guy. I'm sorry, you know, even with some of the stuff, which I do like the elements of it.
Right.
I'm sorry, a backhand's just gonna knock him down, you know. But I would be more willing to give that to a high schooler. Like I said, nitpick. In the end, doesn't really change the way they're drawn or written. It's just one of those translational things where I'm like, I get it. Sometimes they have these characters in middle school. Surprising they weren't just in high school, kind of like My Hero Academia, because honestly, these characters feel like the same age as those characters. Other than when they occasionally say that they're not, but other than that, they do.
Right. Well, and to that point, I know since you, Westfox, you know, said to me to say, hey, you should watch My Hero Academia, you know, and I had told you to watch Assassination Classroom. I think it's like they're almost like
their counterpart shows on some level.
The counterparts, yeah. It's like watching Assassination Classroom and already knowing that made it very comfortable for me to get into My Hero Academia.
Yeah, they do follow similar, not story plots, but story structure type thing. They're building their skills. The battle of the day.
Growth of a whole classroom.
Yes.
Too. Like that's one thing that this show and My Hero Academia do extremely well is character development for all the characters you see are being shown here in the bottom quarter. I mean, they talk about all of them.
Yes. Only I would say that I think My Hero does better with that part of the character is. Now, granted, My Hero has a lot more seasons on it, and I'm sure the manga also develops them more. But there was a few characters, and when they're naming off the characters, and I'm like, what does this character do? Because the big classroom of characters, and some of the characters do fall kind of to the wayside quite a bit. And I think that there could have been a little more time developing some of them. But in the end with the show, I don't think it would have added to the show. It would have ended up being more bloat. Yeah. So maybe it's just the writing. Again, when
the characters they follow have the biggest impact to the story.
Yeah, and so
you know that you do follow for this.
Yeah, so that overall the characters are really good though. Now, however, moving into kind of the end, I am glad that it was Nagisa that did the final blade push that made that work because that kind of character kind of had to with their translation with it. Yeah, that character had to do that. And the only thing at the end that I didn't totally love, it wasn't the end of the story with the main characters. Like I said, it was a time jump. And there's one thing in movie shows that, well, this is part of it, but there's one thing in shows that I always go, oh, why? And it's when characters give back money to the government after. I always hate that. I don't know. It's one of those ones when like characters win something and they're like, oh no, we don't want it. We're just give it to the money, the government. And I'm always like, you guys have been like trained to be productive, not just from the assassination perspective, but also like as human beings. And the fact that you wouldn't be like, you know what? We can do a lot of good with this in a couple of years. Let's lock it away, maybe for 10 years so we can't touch it and we're divvy it out. So things.
Yeah.
I always
certain ones of them wanted to go in business or had a mind for business, if I remember correctly. And it's like, if I got that money from the government,
do some good with it.
My business.
Yeah, do some good with that. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of one of those. I know it's a thing, but like self-sustaining. You guys did the work.
The selflessness kind of idea.
You did the work.
Well, I think it also came down. I'd almost kind of say too that they didn't push it in that way, but it's like it's kind of bittersweet to have that money considering of what had to happen to get it by the end.
Yeah, but they kept enough to do school,
like,
so
I wouldn't
that's
call
good,
it like blood money, like they feel about it that way, but
yeah, that could
like you said, that the whole
that
ending of what has to happen to steal from Doctor Who was beautiful and sad.
Yeah, it is. It was beautiful and sad.
That's how I would describe at least the last bit with Koro Sensei.
And I agree. And the last scene is so I honestly that last scene it's pretty hard to do it better, and that's why the epilogue, because really what I'm talking about is the epilogue is when I said the epilogue kind of left me more on the bitter end than the sweet end. I like that there was some repercussions to the principal. I thought that was good to see.
That was such a great redemption
to do with him.
to pull at the end.
I'm glad they bought the mountain. I thought that was kind of, they did spend the money to buy the mountain and stuff like that. Again, I think they should do some more with it. What was weird to me though was that when they were all there kind of cleaning up the classroom at the end, is that Nagisa was not there. That was probably what kind of threw me off. And I know it's like to do a reveal with what he's doing later on. But at the same time, I think they could have handled that better. I don't know why he wouldn't be there with the group. So I feel like, I don't know, like I said, I don't know if in the manga that was extended or on it, or that was handled differently. I'm just only talking about the anime.
Probably was, I would assume.
But I just felt that had a slight bitterness to me on it. And I also, I don't know if I love that he was a school teacher. Like, I like it on a one level, but I also felt like in the defunct kids' classroom kind of felt off too. And I don't know why, it just did to me. And I get where they're going with it because it was him kind of using what he learned through everything. But I don't know. I guess it also ties into they had the opportunity to do more with what they did, like money wise. You're like, well, you could have started a whole school doing this, dealing with this, or stuff like that. And so that's why it kind of left me like this bittersweet part where I don't know if his character was actually allowed to meet its full potential in the end epilogue. I kind of felt that because and that's the, like I said, it's not that it's a bad one because there's a level of, like I said, the poetry to it, right? It's like poetry, it rhymes. The teacher becomes the mentor who teaches the next generation of it. And maybe it's also too because they kind of try to like make it like, oh, he's able to stop the kids from trying to attack him as well. And that's a thing where like there's truth to that you're gonna learn stuff, but also when the person that you guys were trying to kill was an alien that could literally hop into Mach 20 at will and had an IQ of 1,000 and was essentially the last scene where he saves what's her name? Kayano, and he saves Kayano.
Yeah.
Like, that was beautiful. Like, that's the level of power this character has in the sense of what he is. He's like, oh, don't worry. I pulled every droplet of blood that she lost out of the air and saved it so I could stitch her cells together one by one at literally a subatomic level because, yeah, you didn't know this, but like, I have nanotentacles that I can pretty much sew you together and you pretty much don't even have an injury anymore because that's how powerful I actually am. So,
which was awesome.
Oh, it was great. It was a great scene, and like I said, his protection of the characters in it was amazing. So
his character, yeah.
And so when I see another character kind of try to take that mantle, it's not a mantle that passes because you can't pass that mantle on because the mantle is, like I said, literally as close as, you're talking, there's not many non-deity characters in shows that are as powerful as him. Like, yeah, we learned that he couldn't probably destroy the Earth because other than the fact that he's antimatter issue is the reason that the moon destroyed right from a mouse, which I don't think would actually destroy the moon, but it would do some damage. I think it'd be the equivalent of, I think a raisin's equivalent of like a shuttle engine going off. It would do a lot of damage. It'd be like a big nuke going off for sure.
Damage.
Yeah. I just don't know how much actual. I don't know
if it'd make the crescent move.
Now, like him blowing up would definitely at least destroy all life on Earth. I would definitely believe that.
Oh yeah.
Or at least make it nearly destroy all life on Earth. It would not be the Earth that we knew. So his destruction threat, we learn obviously, is that it's more of a byproduct of his existence, not a actual willful destruction on Earth. And so he's like I said, but when it comes to it, like in most characters, I don't think there's many characters that are as powerful as him. Like even magical characters, like in the sense of it, there are probably some in the magical space that would actually outmatch him. But we're talking on the magical front. He would probably give most characters in like My Hero Academia a fight for their money.
Well, yeah, and you also got to think too that it's like, there's certain materials then that he's actually only susceptible to. So it's like, normal weaponry, bullets and stuff don't affect him. They have to use the anti-sensei, the anti-tentacle
weapon
products
chemicals
to actually then have to do it. So he's already, like you're saying, he goes Mach 20. He can do, like, his tentacles move faster than anything. He can pretty much, like, moves faster than he's making clones of himself or after images. They're able to do different things, as you see throughout the show.
His level of intelligence,
like you said, his level of power is incredible. It's over 9,000. But yeah, to that, to pull from another anime. But to your point, though, I would say that I would agree. The Nagisa end with her being in, like, the delinquent classroom. Him being the delinquent classroom. Excuse me. I always feel bad about that. And then you realize, and then if you watch the show, you'll realize why. I feel bad about accidentally always calling him a chick.
Why are you calling? Yeah, right. I wasn't sure. I did look it up.
You didn't know for the first part.
Well, you never know first in anime because you're like, is it a trap? Is it a trap? And you're like, I don't know. Is it a trap? And you're like, and you don't know because there's like ones like, well, have you seen ReZero yet? Have you watched ReZero yet?
I haven't finished all of it, but
have you met the trap?
I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a trap in there. I don't know, actually. I think the author actually said that it's not a trap, but it pretends to be a trap. They like doing that. That's their thing. They like being like, oh no, this character is totally a boy. But in reality,
the lines of
but no,
actually,
no, they're not. They were just pretending to not be a boy because pretending to be a boy in a girl's clothes because insert reason here. So yeah, never like, so in this show, like I said, Nagisa's reason for what he was dealing with ended up making a lot of sense.
But I was just gonna say,
oh, and that's what also made me bittersweet too.
I would never go, like, if I was a teacher for an inner city, or delinquency classroom, I would never say, well, if you can kill me, you're welcome to try. Even if I was a master assassin, because it's like, I'm sorry, some guy's gonna come in there with a bomb, or just walk in with a. And again, Koro Sensei needed special bullets to kill him. You don't. The guy just needs to walk. One guy walks in there with a gun
or just a knife.
Sure, you're not gonna be fast enough to get away with it. Like, hey, maybe the knife I might give Nagisa a good chance because we know what he can do against someone in that level. But when you put a gun on someone's hand against an assassin, sorry, gun usually beats assassin most times.
Well, here's the problem too. If someone look how fast Karma was able to damage somebody, right?
Oh man!
All it takes is someone to come in and be like, "Okay, nice to meet you." Yoink. I mean, 3 times. Yep. Hey, exactly. Hang out all the time. Oh, great. Doom, done. Like that. That's the problem with that kind of. That's the problem with it. The other thing I thought was sad.
Challenge.
Yeah. The other thing I thought was kind of a bummer was Kano kind of had like her little crush on him, and then like 10 years later,
you don't get to see the.
Well, 10 years later, she's like, "Yeah, he's still not available mentally," and I'm like, "Wait, what? How is he not available mentally now? Like 10 years later, I got it when he was like in middle school, but now he's like 27 or something. I think he like said 27, and you're like, wait, he's still not? He's just a teacher. You haven't been able to get on a date with him after 10 years, and it's not like he's like, and they weren't going for like he's not into girls thing either. It was just like he's just not available like mentally, and you're like, oh. I thought that was a little like, it wasn't even like, and I thought that was kind of a sad thing. Not that he had to go out with her specifically, but I feel like in this show, certain characters would date long term in life due to the fact that they had such a level of a shared experience in such a weird, like, how do you not
the two snipers, the male and female sniper ones. It's like, I know they kind of ended it like, they're going to go into like a business partnership, but it's like, okay, I could clearly see there being a relationship there.
Yeah.
So
I thought that was
there's a few.
I thought that was the only other thing. And then, any other notes on that? No, like I said, it's still a great show. Like I said, it was one of those just things where I was like, oh,
excellent show.
That's
I mean,
too bad.
The fact that then like you're saying that these were first off nitpicks, and the fact that these are nitpicks, and what you're kind of saying, oh, you know, and your nitpick isn't saying, oh, this is what made it bad. You're saying, oh, this might have made it even better. Which, you know, it's like
right.
That
I mean, like
know, that's a good kind of critique. Is like, oh, you had an A, and I feel that maybe this might have been a good change that would have made an A+.
Yeah, and here's the thing too.
Like,
I did love the fine. I am thankful that they finally got Professor Bitch and
Karusuma.
Yeah, Karusuma together.
It was Aizawa. Aizawa is his first name, I think. Yeah.
No, it's Tadomano.
Taku. Yeah, Taku. Yeah.
I'm glad because I do love this scene where they're talking on the bridge and she's like, yeah, you know, and he's like, well, there's not a church near my house, but you can walk farther. And she's like, what? And then he just
wait, what does that mean? He's like,
and she's like, oh, okay. And I thought that was pretty. I thought that was pretty hilarious.
It's so. It was cute to see them go from like him just so annoyed by her.
Yeah, well, and she also passed like, her arc too, and his arc. And I also loved it too when the next day all she does is like have little heart. I only draw her with heart eyes for the rest of the show. I think her just staring at him like, I love him so much, and I thought that was.
It's always like I said, it's always that, and it's because like I said, there's so many shows that always do it, but it was so funny for her that she's the one that it's like every time she sees him doing something sexy, you know, then she gets the bloody nose. She's just like, oh gosh.
I know that was good. That was good because she was so like, I'm gonna kill him, and then at the end she goes, I love this man so much. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Like, oh, he's so loving.
Now I thought
it was cute for them. It was good.
And their in little scene was okay. I only thing I thought was surprised when they were like 10 years later, and you're like, I'm still an undercover operative going to the Middle East. I was like, would you be at this point? And I'm like,
right.
That's only like you said. There was a couple progressional parts that I was like, I get he's sending you to the Middle East because you're qualified, but would he send you to the Middle East to be qualified? Because like, wouldn't they know? Well, like, don't you stand out kind of in the Middle East? You know, you're like,
yeah, because you know what it almost makes it seem like it's like there was a part of me. It's like I was happy to have the epilogue, but it's like almost since there was so much time frame between where they were saying what the last scene and then the epilogue, it was almost like, oh shoot, I almost feel like I'm missing something here, a part of the epilogue to kind of maybe.
I was actually surprised because I knew it was the final episode, and then I was like, wait, there's like 6 minutes left. I'm like, I was literally like,
yeah,
am I missing an episode? Because I felt
like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
I felt like the end season or the end episode needed legitimately a full episode on its own. Deep diving
episode.
Yeah, it almost needed an episode like breakdown of some of the final stuff with the characters. I mean, most of it wasn't relevant too much, but I wouldn't have mind seeing just a little bit more of the wrap out because I think it's mostly because I feel like Koro Sensei's impact with their life should be larger than maybe it was, if that makes sense. And again, it's hard to say a character like this, but I feel like them experiencing what they did, they would be on a bigger trajectory arc of life stuff than maybe they were. Right. And that might just be me. That could be just me. That could just be me projecting what I expect. I mean, on a story.
I think for certain ones, I think so. Some of them maybe not as much, but it's like, you know, some of those main groups, I would assume they would kind of come back after that with kind of that similar feeling of like, you know, Frodo and Sam coming back after. You know, I'll put it this way: when the whole group of hobbits come back, you know, Merry and Pippin are glad to go back to their normal lives. It was an adventure; they kind of moved back to it. But for Frodo, like Sam, kind of had his thing. He continues his life, but Frodo, then for him, it's like I can't go back to life in the same way after what I experienced. There has to be something different.
Yeah, and I feel like that's that's a really good example because I do feel like Karma, and then Nagisa. K&O were probably the big ones there. Those three.
Yeah.
Because Kano kind of popped out of nowhere, to be honest. Because
she was supposed to, I mean, because she has her, you know, I won't spoil it for people, but yeah, I guess she was a character that you thought was one thing, and then she becomes
something else. And it was really near the end of the show, too. It was the last, like, 5 episodes where she popped out, too. So that was surprising. That was like, oh, this character just got kind of shoved forward. Which is kind of an awesome thing in a show like this. Like in most shows, that would be really bad. In this show, it really works good because that is the point of the show. It was a
good, because I wouldn't even call it like a subverting of expectations, but it was a good like twist. It was an honest like, that's adding something extra, and there's a lot of that in the show where you're kind of going along. Like I'd say one of my favorite parts about this show is, I don't know if you remember watching, like you went through it quickly, so you probably saw it, but it's like, you know, the opening credit scenes, how at first a lot of times it's like certain things are shadowed and you don't know who they are, and it's kind of a mystery, and then as the seasons progress, then they like start showing, like, I think, you know, at first like there like it shows Koro Sensei's tentacle form, and then there's like another picture that's blacked out, and then when you find out how he became his tentacle form, then they actually show that picture, and they show like, so
each episode they do that?
Enjoyed that they actually. It's not the episode, but like I think with each season, they would like
Yeah, I mean, I kind of noticed. I think
pieces of things that kind of started happening.
I think it was like the second,
which I thought was just really cool, because it was showing. It's like it always showed that you knew there was mysteries that had to be there, and it was cool as those mysteries get unraveled, and it was done in a great way. And then there was and especially since there's no loose end left.
Yes, that is, like I said, the ending is nice that it finishes. It does finish. Like there's no
like
loose
it is an end to the story.
When it was teasing the possibility of an alternate solution, I was like, I don't see this happening. And it did do a good job of kind of pulling the choice away from the kids. I thought that was well done. In the sense of they still had to make a choice, but it pulled a lot of that like self choice when they were talking about it. They're like, some of us want to kill him, some of us don't now, and that was a good scene, and that was a good episode. But what happened after that point also kind of allowed all of them to be innocent too inside of the story.
Yes.
And in the end, the death is more of a not Subukai, but it's like almost an inverse of that. It's almost a suicide, an honorable suicide. Not one. It's like one that's like, there's no other option, but if anybody has to do it, I want it to be you, not the government type thing.
Yes.
And so that was kind of a good way to force them into it, I thought, without kind of tainting them as children. Or even as characters. Like I said, even if they were high school or older, even if they were like 17, 18, above 16, I think is adulthood in Japan generally. And so I'd be okay with that for that reason too, with the characters, because they're not monster characters and they're not designed to be, but they're designed to be. They're not
murderers. They're not.
The only character that was seen that was obviously that
could have gone there was Nagasa.
They kind of hinted that he had kind of a somewhat sociopathic personality. Granted, when you have a mom like him, it's not exactly surprising. Yeah. And that was an intense episode. Those were very good and intense episodes involving the mom. I think my favorite episode, like I said, I think some of my favorite ones were just the adventures with them and Koro Sensei. When they would just kind of stretch his power set, essentially, was always quite entertaining with something there. How is he going to do? Oh, okay. Yeah, he literally just, essentially stopped time and just went around you guys not even realizing.
Right, or they're like, we came up with the perfect assassination plan. Nope, just kidding, because he can go into his ultimate form that doesn't get hurt at all. Or, it's my monthly trick of being able to shed my skin and save myself.
Right.
And that's also and then that's also one thing too, because that brings in one of the greatest is the depth of character that Koro Sensei is himself for being a yellow smiley face octopus. You know, as they kind of call him on there, it's like I think it is the first episode where then you get to see him just be mad as hell.
Oh yeah.
When it's like when Nagase tries to commit suicide, and then it's his black face of him just.
Yes.
And you're just like,
so.
Oh, like
I did have a question.
That.
I did have a question because I agree now is great. When he beats his protege at the end,
right?
And he has his white light form essentially. Is that because he was drinking the different colors of chemical at the end there? Like, was that helping him prep it? I wasn't sure. Because you know what I'm talking about? Like, they had this one random scene where he's, like, drinking the different vials of chemicals. And I was like, what's happening
Because he
there?
does it a few... Yeah, because doesn't he do it another time and he's like... Because I think so. Because, you know, they had that one before. Because I think there wasn't there that... It was the episode before was one of the girls was trying to, like, make him the poison.
Yeah,
and
well,
like,
it was.
Can you let me poison him? And he's like, oh, well, make this, and this will work. And then it made him like super relaxed. So it's like clearly he knows how to, you know. So that's what I assumed was it was kind of like him kind of knowing it was gonna, you know, and just
knowing some stuff was coming. Yeah, because really the biggest villain in the show.
Those doctory moments of I know something's about to happen. I can't let you guys know, but
right.
You know, I know it's gonna happen, and I'm one step ahead or 20 steps ahead still.
Right. I mean, the biggest villain guy is the guy who was created him in the first place.
Right.
I mean, that guy is just psycho. Like, and that's the one thing that I would say, with the government side. I'm not sure. Was that guy government sanctioned? Like, I feel like he was like government sanctioned. I'm like, was this guy actually sanctioned by the government, or like were they just like we just let him do his thing? Like, that was the only thing I would say. Like, maybe getting the manga, they may had more depth on what he was doing. Because it seemed like that guy was more rogue and dangerous than Koro Sensei in most cases.
Right. Well, and I'm assuming probably because of him, it's like more of if the government probably said anything to him, you know, this is just outside of it, but it's like if the government went to him, he's like, well, I'm the only guy that can probably destroy him.
Must be. Yeah, I'm sure it was huge.
You probably need my research. So he probably always had a whole, like, a key position or some. Like I said, he probably was the one who probably helped them design the anti-tentacle then.
I'm assuming, yes.
They don't say it, but I would assume probably his research or something was a part of that.
That's what I assume, because it took a little while till they kind of start explaining why the government knows what he is.
All what's happening. Yeah.
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 So, that was interesting. I'm glad they answered all the questions. I thought the backstories for him was good.
Oh, wonderful. I think it was such a great, for being a show that I was, like you were saying, when it's starting off, I was kind of going, okay, is this going to be kind of a fun kiddie, like not kiddie, but just, very, very, easygoing show. And in a lot of places it all is, but then it just hits you so many good points of like, man, there's some emotional impact there. Dang, there's a great storyline there. Man, I'm feeling for these characters. Like you said, when you learn about Nagasa's mom and you go, dang, that's deep. That's rough.
That's dark.
Like that is
dark.
Extremely dark and sad to hear. Yeah, and you learn these things and you're like, oh my goodness. And then, like you said, Koro Sensei's backstory, and you're going, man, for this show really didn't want to pull any punches when it did want to be emotionally impactful, and it's great because of it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good character set, and they, the one thing, like I said, was like, oh, I wouldn't have mind knowing a little more development for some of the characters, but at the same time, it's a nice, compact, 50 episode-ish show, closer to 60, episode show, and it's a nice, tidy package. So it's definitely, if you made it this far into the video, you already know a lot was happening in it, but you should still watch the show, because it really is more about, it's a great example of a show that, there's the battles and there's the elements, but it is much more about the lessons and all the different stories and the growth of the characters inside the story. That is its goal as a show, is to develop the characters and go, there's more to life than insert life problem here.
Right. Or and especially since for them, obviously, like this classroom is the lowest classroom. They're like the D students, pretty much. The DF students, more or less, is kind of like the point of them. So getting to see them both be able to strengthen their life skills and be well-rounded children, and also get to improve, their own academic skills.
Yeah.
And I think that's some of my favorite episodes are the moments where they get to fight against like the 1A class, and kind of fighting against the school to prove that it's like, no, we're worth it. And the principal's son, and a lot of those interactions is very interesting to me.
Yeah, those were interesting.
The principal is actually it was a very interesting character to me too, and that I like I said, I don't think there's a single character in the show that I go, I didn't really like you.
Yeah.
Or I didn't really see why there was a point for you. Like every single character I go, oh, okay.
I would agree with
I see
that.
where this is going. And like I said, the principal was an interesting
side
antagonist,
villain.
but not being, because it's like he's not, he's more the antagonist to the students.
Yeah, I'd agree with
more
that.
than he's the
I thought he was
antagonist
overall
to Koro Sensei.
I thought he was overall pretty solid. I wouldn't have minded to see his since he came from such a good background, or like his let's say his original nature was actually quite pleasant as a human. I wouldn't have mind see his kind of return to form be a little longer than just that one scene. I think would have been a little nicer for him. Granted, he's such a sub character in it. I understand why, but I wouldn't have mind a little bit more with his thing because just because he was such a psycho.
Like, at least but it's like when you realize why he did what he did and why he became what he did. Again,
the reason his shift as a human, I thought was good.
It was a very human shift even in itself. It was a very natural thing that could definitely.
Maybe I'll say maybe.
Like maybe not to the degree that he brings it in the end.
I don't know.
But
only reason I say is because the blame is a tricky one. Like again, every people deal with grief and tragic situations differently. So
differently.
His way of handling it was definitely different than I think most sane people would handle it, in the sense of
for sure.
Again, it's not that and also his goals don't totally match. I guess his methods don't totally match his goals involved with what he experienced, because I feel like if you were literally ostracized due to things, that's going to put you in a more dangerous headspace in the sense of what he's doing. Without going, like I said, because on YouTube the words trigger, but right. I would say he's a very dangerous person to children. In all reality, his mythology very dangerous to people, and in the sense of causing possible self-harm. And obviously his goal was to stop that on some level.
If anyone was actually a principal or teacher like he is, would be in trouble very, very, very,
very quickly. Yeah. And so, as a villain, I think he was stronger. And as a recovering person, I wouldn't have mind seeing that a better translation.
More of it.
Yeah, just because I think that he was so far down his own rabbit hole, it takes a little bit more.
But it's like, because you were kind of getting to see his change even before that last episode, though.
Like, what change? No, there was because he was trying to. He was like,
F these guys. Because he had his final major fight. Well, that's true.
Slapped his son right then.
That's right. I was gonna say that.
If anything, he was going down a worse path.
He was going. I'll put it this way: he was becoming a little bit better to like Koro Sensei in the 1E class, but to his own kid, he was getting worse. Yeah, because there was that little point where he finally kind of went, you know what, 1E is what they are, and it was almost, and he kind of just like let it sit back a little bit, and it was more of like, I'm going to stop trying to fight them.
No, he wasn't. Oh, actually wrong.
But it was more of like he was trying to build up his son to destroy them.
No, he was going to destroy the classroom.
Well, I know, but I'm saying I'm just saying those last few episodes before the last one, there is a little bit that you kind of start seeing him a little bit change. I didn't feel that. Be wrong. I might have to watch the last. Maybe it is just that last episode where he kind of walks back into Koro Sensei before he's killed, and he's like, because I remember that he walks in and he's like, well, maybe I'll try to assassinate you sometime.
Oh no, that's after.
Just come by.
That's after.
Is that after?
That's after. That's after.
Okay.
Yeah, he was terrible before that. There was no episode.
Well, yeah. I know that. That's what I'm saying. I know.
There was no. I'm saying there was no
like,
shift. That what you're talking about was actually a couple episodes after.
Okay.
Well, that was okay. When he almost died is when he says that at the end of that episode, and then he does come by once or twice after that, and they have a conversation that's a little more polite. I think there's one more conversation that's polite. He does try to stab him.
Yeah,
but he was definitely more than okay,
well, of course.
type thing.
Well, that's what was enjoyable about the show, because people could be having these moments of like, we're gonna have a nice, honest conversation, but at the end of it, I still might try to stab you because the whole point is to try to kill you.
Right.
So that's what I love about the show, because it's like all these moments of like, oh, okay, this is nice. Oh, we're having this great, like we're having a classroom, like vacation. So where are we gonna try to kill him?
Yeah, no, and I love like when Cars when he's he'll come in and he's like do, and then you see him watching like, how's things? How are you doing today? And he's like, yeah. It's pretty. There's some funny stuff. So
great. It was so fun.
So yeah, no, it's like I said, it is a unique show. I think that's why it was quite fun too. Obviously, there's elements that are. It's a good example of a show that has a lot of derivative. Like, okay, there's a lot of things in it that are very similar to other shows. Teachers, high school drama. The test taking and those kind of things. Oh, superpowered high school elements, those kind of things. But it's taking a lot of common tropes and really allowed them to be something different. And it's a good example of this.
Yep.
If you look at different elements individually, every couple episodes is a battle. Well, you usually aren't fighting your teacher. That's not always normal. Oh, my teacher's a little bit god tier creature that we can't even try to kill. There's a lot of things in it that are common, let's say commonish tropes and stuff, but this show amps those up in unique ways and kind of flips the script in a few different things, and I think that's what also makes it really good. It shows
the strength of good writing, that just because you might be able to pick a trope or something that is done doesn't mean that it should be cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Even if you're using elements from, even if you're cutting elements from other things in that sense, or using partial elements, it's like you can still make your own masterpiece, and Assassination Classroom definitely proves that.
So do you have a favorite character from the show?
Oh,
I mean, Koro Sensei is obviously
Koro Sensei is obviously it. I would say, I'd have to say probably my next. It probably would be. Shoot, now I'm dropping his name. The redhead.
Karma.
Karma, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
Karma's good. He's pretty good.
Karma is just a oh my gosh. Like, he's a brilliant kid. He's also a little manipulative pain in the butt, and then he's got his own psycho side.
Oh yeah.
He's when he wants to put someone through pain, it's emotional, physical, abuse. I mean, it's like he kicks you when you're down. I mean, it's like who else do you have that after he gets beaten puts wasabi and hot mustard up someone's nose and he stuffs it there and says, nope, you guys sit there for the next like 5 hours.
He has a little sadistic side.
Like he is.
I will say I love.
I don't know, because you watched this in English, correct?
I did.
Okay, so I watched this actually I watched it in the dub.
Okay.
The sub. I watched it in the sub, so it was actually which. It's really funny because there's a few moments. One of my favorite actual scenes, I don't know, it tickles me, just because it's the one moment where they're trying to fight the American like football players or something like that they bring over.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know how it sounds in the English, or I think if it does sound in English, it's like Karma then goes into like a Southern accent when he's speaking English.
They always do. Whenever you're doing English, it's always redneck English.
Yeah, so it's like, so they're speaking normally, but then he's like, "Oh, you guys, boys down the," but it's really funny in the Japanese. It's funny in the Japanese because he's sitting and they're speaking. And he's like, "Oh, and he looks and he goes, 'Hey, you Americans, you know how to play?'" And it's just so funny the way that he screws with him, because he's like, "Oh, come over here, cowboy," and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh."
That's funny.
Especially, or the fact that they make fun of themselves for the R's and L's in the Japanese, because it's really funny, because they'll be doing that joke, and then she's like, "No, you need to," and it's Professor Bitch doing it, because she's like, "No, you have to make sure the L is proper. If it's a riddle, it's not." And and then she's like, no, riddle, and they're like, okay.
That's funny. Yeah.
So
I will say Professor Bitch.
It's always enjoyable to get to watch between the two.
Professor Bitch was pretty hilarious, actually.
She's
Kurasama was
say,
also really good too.
Koro Sensei's voice acting in the Japanese one is just so funny.
Oh,
like, the American one, sometimes he comes off a little.
Oh, I thought he was so
creepy.
good too. No,
I mean he's good, maybe, but it's like sometimes it came up, but like the Japanese one is just so funny, especially when he has his little. Because I don't know what the sound is that he makes for the English one, but he goes there's like a little like whenever his eyes will zoom and he goes his little. He kind of does his little like.
It's pretty similar.
Little voice. It's so.
No, it's always. I would say he pulled a lot from that one because it is pretty similar to that. It is like.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. No, because he does like the.
Little.
I found adult materials somewhere. I always thought that was funny when they're like, "Oh, we just hide adult magazines."
Oh no, my students are seeing me looking at this stuff. I'm so embarrassed.
There was a couple some pretty funny, embarrassing like moments. There was one or two that was like,
gosh,
that's pretty funny.
Especially since the students then use it as a way to try to assassinate him.
Later on,
that's the funniest part.
There's adult magazines over there. What? Die.
What?
Yeah, I would say.
Why is he looking like that? What is he doing?
As a character, I definitely liked Kurasama was really good. I did love Professor Bitch because some of the stuff that she would say in the background, and how they would draw her, do things that they would draw her as is pretty hilarious. I did like Nagisa as a lead.
The simple fact they call her Professor Bitch is hilarious in itself.
Right.
She's like, I'm Professor Arena. They're like, no, we're gonna call you Bitch, and she's like, no, and they're like, okay, Professor Bitch.
Right. It's pretty hilarious.
To the end of it, too. It's like even when they start liking her, they're still like, she's still Professor Bitch.
Oh yeah, no, it was
that's
perfect.
What makes me laugh about it.
It was pretty perfect. And then I actually, Nagisa as a main character also was overall pretty solid for me.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed his character.
Their little inner monologues was good because he kind of ends up being kind of the narrator in a lot of parts. I think he goes from being kind of a side character. I don't know if that's how it's worded right. He goes from being not as pivotal to the main story, but as he develops, he definitely does become kind of the de facto leader of the class in his own little way. Yeah. Where it's not because he's specifically anything, but because he is kind of the biggest threat in the group, right? He's kind of the one who's like, it is that guy who is kind of psycho. They're like that. There's those guys.
Like a good moment of proving that is, like I said, Karma is definitely, I would say, the most. He's the strongest, I would say, out of the classroom in the sense of just, all aspects. And I'm not saying like physically, but I think he's probably the strongest. And that's why I love that those two, like Nagisa and Karma, are kind of friends, but kind of never quite friendly all the time.
They
kind of have like the Bakugo Deku kind of. Yeah. They kind of have like that, but not as bad of a level, clearly.
Yeah. I would, that's a good, actually just an example. I wish Bakugo and Deku were more along those lines.
A little bit more of like this one where it's like sometimes they kind of like.
I know some people I love Bakugo. Bakugo, I hate Bakugo. And I don't really hate Bakugo, but freaking only because the only thing he does is
he's always a powder, because he's always a powder keg. And that's like kind of what it's
every
like,
scene
whenever he gets to him, he's going to be just.
He's always yelling. He could never have a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly wish, like, the only reason he redeemed for me in that show, as a character I didn't hate, was due to the fact that when the villains had him, he was like, "F you guys, I'm gonna be a hero."
Right?
Still.
They're like, you don't like
You're
the rules.
psycho?
So why don't you go join the villains? And he's like, I want to be a hero and kill you.
Yeah, he's like,
it's like,
I'm a hero murderer, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah. So like other than
Yeah, but I enjoy though because I think it is where they're trying to choose, because they have to have a fight between like choosing if they will try to save Koro Sensei or try to killing him. And
that was a good one.
And it's Karma and Nagasa kind of at the end having their major fight. And but I also love because there's that episode. There's a way before where it's the first time I think that Nagasa is like able to kind of sneak up on Karma, and ever after that moment, Karma's like, he's like, hey, I know I can usually beat Nagasa, but the dude's just like he freaks me out because he can still get behind me without me knowing. And I think even Kurosama has the same thing,
Yeah,
I think
a couple characters.
I think it is.
It's a couple
Like,
characters throughout the show.
He comes up to him that first time, and he's like, "I didn't realize you were there. I'm sorry," because he hits Nagasa really hard back because he actually thought it was a legitimate threat. And it's like, so it's always cool that you see those moments where it's like even characters are super strong. Look at Nagasa and go, it's not that you're strong, but you definitely have the ability to be assassin. I don't realize you're there, or as they say in the show, it's like you hide your bloodlust. I don't know that you're coming in for the kill. You look like you're about to give me, a Valentine's Day present, and it's a bomb, or you're about to get me, and it's like, and that's what makes him scary to even the strong characters.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, and they did it little bits throughout the show, developing that also in his nature, where he's like, "Oh, I'm this crazy kid." So, any final thoughts for you on this conversation?
No, like I said, yeah, please, if you haven't watched it, I definitely recommend it. I'm really glad that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad I watched it.
Because that's just been, I think that, like I said, I think this is probably my favorite anime show that I've watched personally. I would say so. There's might be a few other ones that I'm, like are very close on it, but
it's
like you said,
I watch a lot more than you.
Wasn't what I was expecting.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's a solid. It was out of for me, I think I put it as a solid 9. Out of 10 on the shows. Yeah, I'm a little more forgiving. Well, I can be more forgiving on some of the shows. It's definitely, I don't put it into, it's not one of my favorite, like all-time favorites. It's a solid one. Like but I also watch a lot more anime than you do. So my broad stroke is a little larger. We're getting you up there. But as a show, it's solid. That's in the sense of, will it be everybody's taste out there who will watch it? No, not everyone will like it, but I also view it as a show that most people will enjoy it. I think that most people can enjoy this show, and it doesn't do anything so far. Like, if you enjoy anime in general, it's a show you should watch. Is it, because every once in a while there's shows that people are like, oh my God, this show's saving anime. It's like, no, this isn't one of those like world-changing anime shows, but
no,
not every show has to be. And sometimes there's shows that you can just sit and enjoy.
You just want a great show that gives a story and it gives a good ending, and I think that's the biggest thing for me is. And
one you can enjoy the journey. It's a show that the ending is enjoyable and the journey to the ending is enjoyable. Obviously, like we shared some of my nitpicks. Like I said, those are very small issues. It doesn't take away. It's not one of those things that like certain shows I can watch the end and go, oh, I'll probably never watch that show again. The ending doesn't take.
I've rewatched this now like 2 times.
Yeah, the ending doesn't take any way.
I rewatched it the first time, and Candace, my girlfriend, started watching it, and I was like, "Oh, you're watching this? Well, when you come over, I'll watch it with you because I love this show, and especially because it was getting right to where I knew it was going to get emotional again. I'm like, oh, I'm ready to cry."
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm not sure what I would, compare it to. Again, it's that kind of high school shonen show. So there's, My Hero. My Hero is a good example of something else to watch with it. But I
would almost maybe put it as. Could you say maybe comparable to at least like something kind of enjoyable like Avatar? Because I might put it like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, the sense of enjoyment. I'm just saying, like I still hold. I would say the difference in why I wouldn't put it compared to Avatar is this is still somewhat a slice of life show, even though it's true. Episodic kind of slice of life with the characters, versus the Avatar Last Airbender story is a more traditional epic, Iliad, the journey type thing. And I don't think that this show doesn't fall into that structure.
No,
I think that definitely the My Hero Academia.
I'm just saying kind of that, like, I guess I'm more saying it just because of its
the feel.
Another show that's like, it kind of like, I don't know how to say, but kind of like that's similar. Just like it's a good show that you can enjoy, and it's not.
Well, it's not a heavy show. Okay, I mean, in the sense of if you're talking like, is it?
I guess that's a good way to kind of say it.
I guess in the sense of no, it's even though the topic seems like it would be heavy. It's definitely not a heavy show in the sense of like,
well, I mean,
at
the same point that the whole point of Avatar is a guy trying to save the world and learn everything before the comet comes in summer. So it's like, again, that's pretty heavy. It's another very heavy topic, but the way that's presented to you is a very enjoyable journey, and I think that's where I kind of put it like that. It's another show that's a great enjoyable journey.
Yeah,
it has a good ending.
It does have a good ending. Like if I look at not Metacritic, but the my anime list score has an 8.15. It's ranked 357. Popularity is 50th in the popularity. That's pretty high up on the popularity scale, and almost 1 million people have rated it. So that's a pretty solid show on there. I think it's at 8.15. I think it's pretty accurate. Because again, if I was to use a straight number, I gave it a 9 because I think it deserves higher than 8.
I think so too. 8. I wouldn't give it a B status.
8.5. When you use a 10, I don't use a B's. Like I don't consider I consider anything above it 8 pretty good. 8.5 to 9.
I would agree, but yeah, I just think I would put it higher than 8.
Yeah, I think you probably held it higher, but like I said, I think the strongest element of the show is definitely the characters. So, thank you for the recommendation. I know you have a couple of shows you're gonna finish up. I know you have to finish up. I think ReZero, and then we have a Trigun review coming out with all 3 of us because Philip actually saw that one. Our other brother is not quite the anime fan, so the shows he'll watch
he's just not a television fan. I mean,
that's
goodness,
true.
If you saw our last video, I mean,
finding something he can enjoy is a trick. So we have a couple other anime shows. I have a bunch I need to finish reviewing for a full review, kind of breakdown type stuff. This was kind of just a general discussion about the show, and the great thing is a lot of these shows I think will have long legs in the sense of if you want to compare it to shows like Avatar and stuff like that, in the sense of there is a level of longevity that I feel certain shows will have, and this is a show that I feel like in 10 years it'd be great to watch again. 10 years great to watch again. Like I said, you watch it a little sooner, but it's not a show that I think some shows you watch and you're like, okay, this isn't gonna be like I just finished me and my wife watched In Another World with my smartphone, and yeah, it's C tier. It's completely silly.
I get you.
Is it unwatchable? No.
You get done with it and you say, okay, I watched it, I enjoyed it, I guess. But then, like you said,
it's 12 episodes that are cute. The characters are cute. It has a lot of the same tropes of OP, main character. Is it unwatchable? No. Is it something that makes you go, that is something that's amazing? No. Okay, cool, that was cute, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. The one thing I'll say though is I've seen a couple shows that I'm like, oh, this is unwatchable, and it's not that.
Right.
There's and pacing wise, like it's a silly show. Like there's one show I have to find out which one it is. There's one show I watched, and it was the first, because a lot of times people will say things in like reviews, and they're like, "Oh, the pacing sucked" or whatever. No. You have nothing on this show. I think it's like UK Holder or AK something Holder. I think. I'll have to find it. Holy crap! Like they're just seeing that like you're 5 minutes and you're like have an entire battle. It'd be like if you took the entire season, entire story. No. If you took all the seasons of My Hero Academia and squished it into like 12 episodes.
Ooh.
And like cut and like I said, and literally cut almost everything there, and just like cut out chunks. Like like the battles might be 4 episodes long, 5 episodes long. Imagine like knocking those down to like 5 minutes, and you're all of a sudden characters like, it's a giant battle, there's important things happening, and then boom, it's over. And you're like, what? And they're like, yes, we're now here, and you're like, we have a sword now, and you're like, oh, you do? Cool. And then they're, oh yeah. Oh man, it was it was one of the worst pacing things I've ever seen. I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? And I watched it and I was like, now I know what bad pacing looks like. There we go. Now I know what actual bad pacing looks like. I mean, not that shows don't have some, questionable pacing, but
right. But that clearly sounds like
it was like, what is happening? So Yeah, there's a couple of shows I need to go through and finish reviews for. Well, like I think I have over like 100 shows I need to review actually. So I have a long list of shows to write reviews on. Because there's a lot of shows to review. Well, and right now I have time because so many shows are on like hiatus right now. Just finished Demon Slayer, which is great. Watch that one. They had that on Hulu. They had the sub and dub on Hulu. That's worth watching. You know me, I watch more dubs than subs. But that one's solid. Great training arcs.
You know, it always depends for me. Sometimes I'll do it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes it just depends on which one I hear first. Like, I think I've watched Death Note in both the English and the Japanese.
Got it.
Now, like for both.
You know, the show that there's only one show that I would say there's only one or two shows that I say you have to watch the dub. Shomanetta, you have to watch the dub. Well, yes. you can watch the sub. I'm not saying you can't watch the sub, but the rate at which jokes and expletives are tossed out by the characters
and innuendos.
Innuendos.
It's kind of easier if you actually.
I would say
understand the language it's coming from.
Yeah, I feel like there's things where if I didn't know what the characters were saying and trying to read that, it would lose its hilarity of that show. Very much so.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's one. If there's one that I'd say it's almost you have, like I said, imperative to watch it.
If you want to enjoy it for all of its comedic
timing,
the parts of it,
and timing's hard, and that's the hard part. You want
to be able to understand it.
Yeah, and that's the hard part with comedy ones when you're like, oh, the comedy comes at you different pacing on when they're like really comedy heavy. I think is always a tricky thing. Right. Reading, and also half the time I'm working on writing stuff or not writing, like writing code or fixing stuff on the internet, and it's hard to. There's a different level of focus when you have to read versus listen on stuff, so that's always a trick.
Well,
so
it's what always gets to me is like for some reason I'll be watching the sub, and I'm looking at the subtitles, and I walk away to the kitchen, and for some reason I think that I'm still going to be able to understand it.
You're like,
and I walk and I go, wait a minute, why are they speaking a different language now? I'm like, oh right, they've been speaking a different language the whole time. I've just been reading.
You're at the meme.
It's like because it's like when you're watching subtitles, there's a point where it's almost like, you're reading it in your mind, and for some reason you think it's them actually speaking English,
right?
Even though you're hearing it in Japanese. But then you walk away, and then it's like, why am I not understanding anything anymore? Because you don't know Japanese, Christopher. Like, oh, that's right. Yeah, I actually have to read it.
That's funny.
That might help.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed. Go watch the show. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you've already seen the show, also share your thoughts in the comments. If we've got anything wrong, right, do you agree, disagree, opinions, we love to hear them because we like opinions. We have big ones. Obviously, you've seen us now. So have a great day. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.